all to this free live session that's hosted for you exclusively by TalentSprint. I can see a lot of you who have already joined in on chat. I welcome you all to this free live session. As you're all aware that the topic for today's session is pretty interesting actually. It is how to maximize your scores in English, right? So all of you are aware of the patterns, the number of questions that are asked in each exam type, right? For example, IBPS clerks or IBPS PO, SBI PO, the RRB. Every exam has a particular pattern, and of course questions range from 40 to 50, and like in case of I'd say SO, right? In that you have 30 questions, right? It's just that in SO there is a slight variation in the marking pattern, but essentially for all other subjects, for all other exams, the English number of questions and the pattern of marking more or less remains the same. Now, why do you think I chose to speak on this topic? Strategies to maximize your scores in any exam, particularly in any bank exam. So typically, let me just explain what essentially I'm going to cover as a part of today's session. I'm not going to discuss any questions. I'm not going to discuss any particular question type. Instead, yes, partly I'm going to discuss a question type and also tell you a smarter approach to answering those questions, right? Not that our students, the students who've enrolled for our course, know that whenever any exam notification is released, we conduct live sessions wherein we discuss questions pertaining to the exam pattern. We have quant, reasoning, of course you have your current affairs, banking, English. Essentially everything is covered based on the notification, right? Yeah, I think a lot of people are there, few of the new names for sure, because this is a public live session which is been brought to you exclusively by TalentSprint. Right, so any guesses what exactly I'm going to cover as a part of today's session? I mean, let's assume that this is a classroom and I have to ask you, what exactly should I cover in this particular session? Am I going to discuss how to approach closed passages type of questions? Am I going to discuss how to approach reading comprehension type of questions? Okay, I think Pinky, Hari, Vasavi. Okay, hi to everybody. I think a lot of highs and hellos are circulating on the chat. Okay, once again, hi, and let's get on with the session. Right, so, okay, so what I'm going to discuss, essentially, if you know, in any bank exam for that matter, there are some question types which are asked, okay? You have vocabulary related questions. Now, vocabulary questions are asked in different, in 2 to 3 patterns, right? One is when there is a context, where there is a reading comprehension passage and after the few questions, you have about 2 synonyms and 2 antonyms, which you may have to answer with respect to the passage. So that is one type of question where vocabulary is tested. Now, how do you usually approach these questions? Now, talking about maximizing your scores, right? Talking about maximizing your scores, a lot of you may just feel very scared and you would say, well, ma'am, I don't want to attempt reading and comprehension. Well, it's all right. I understand people have their set of fears. They have their set of, approach based on their comfort zone as to how to approach the questions. Let's say in any reading comprehension passage, even if you do not wish to look at the questions, synonyms and antonyms is something that you can always look at, right? Now the approach, the smarter approach to answering vocabulary related questions, which is with respect to a context, which is one of the patterns, reading and comprehension, is keywords, right? To look for keywords. Now, there's one point that I'd like to make here. What happens in synonyms and antonyms, more often than not, in the options of antonyms, mark my word, in the options of antonyms, few of the responses will actually be synonyms, right? Few of the responses that you'll see will actually give you the meaning for the word for which the antonym has been asked for, right? So some people, as they're answering the questions, they may just go wrong there and they may immediately mark or choose an answer which is the meaning. However, what has been asked is exactly the opposite of the word that's been asked, right? So that's one point that you have to remember. You have keywords. Now, how are you going to look at keywords? Of course, your transition words, which we often discuss how to use the keyword approach in our video lessons. We have videos which explain very clearly how to identify the keywords and answer the vocabulary related questions. So for all of you who are generally very scared about attempting, in our regular sessions, there's so many of the students who keep telling, ma'am, I would want to skip all the questions of reading and comprehension. But to tell you honestly, that's not a great idea, but talking about maximizing scores, always try to attempt questions which you can either answer immediately or you can skip immediately, okay? So that's one strategy where you can look at how to answer. Now I just discussed so that was related to vocabulary, okay? Now vocabulary, as you know, you have context related, where you have your reading and comprehension, which give you the clue words to attempt to identify the answers. And then you also have independently asked. Now, how the independently asked questions supposed to be answered, right? Either you have a great vocabulary base, okay, which includes words as well as root words, prefixes and suffixes. And the other option is the third pattern in which questions could be asked are where there are a group of words and you have to choose a pair which either is a synonym or an antonym, right? A pair. So you have to choose. So these are the few ways how vocabulary can be tested. Now in fill in the blanks type of questions, okay? So here when you have your root words, alright? So root words is what you can use, and in addition to that, of course, good knowledge of vocabulary also helps. Prefixes, suffixes, I'm sure our regular students would know how we've shared on the site how to use the root word approach to identify certain answers. How does the knowledge of prefixes help us understand whether a particular word conveys a negative meaning or a positive meaning? Now, just a point, since we're discussing strategies, okay, just a point to answer questions pertaining to vocabulary. If you have a good knowledge of, I would say, prefixes and suffixes, you should use the method of elimination, right? You have, of course, root words, and then you have, you have your vocabulary, like a strong word base, right? Word base. So that is how vocabulary is tested. But again, I'm talking about attempting questions. You talk about elimination. Now in an exam, during an exam, in any bank exam, you have one thing in common for all the exams. Any guesses what? Any guesses? What is it that's common in all the bank exams? Anybody? I'm trying to look at the chat. Anyone who can tell me what is common in all the bank exams? Let me tell you the answer, okay? All the bank exams have options in common, right? All questions have options and all bank exams have options in common, right? It was quite a simple question and you people started thinking in a very complicated way. Every exam has options in common, right? So the first approach that you can use while attempting questions, especially first that I'm discussing here is questions pertaining to vocabulary, is the approach of elimination from the options, right? You have options, of course, subjects. I think Venkatesh and others. Yeah, I think Chandan Singh, you almost there, right? Elimination of options. Options is something that's common in all the exams, right? You have options for quant, for reasoning, for English, general awareness, everywhere you have options, right? So, if you can use the method of elimination, you certainly have that edge over others who may be just trying to arrive at the correct answer. So, how easy would it be if you're able to eliminate 3 out of the 5 options and you just are left with 2 to choose from, right? And then, of course, you're learning from what you've learned from your videos, from your tests, you can apply, right? So, in case of vocabulary, the idea of elimination is actually, you can actually use it if you've got a good knowledge of prefixes, suffixes, as well as the root words. Of course, nothing like having a great vocabulary base, but just in case, if you have any idea about the prefixes and suffixes, you will be very easily able to eliminate certain responses. For example, if you have something like im as a prefix, you know that it shows something negative, right? Possible, impossible, perfect, imperfect. So im, let's say d, de or dis. So if you have knowledge of these prefixes, suffixes, I'm just quoting a few simple examples, but I'm sure if you've been practicing, if you've been revising your lessons in vocabulary, I'm sure you're able to relate to what I'm saying. So suppose a particular answer, a particular question or a particular word has I would say a prefix which conveys something negative or an antonym. So obviously you can eliminate a few options which convey something positive, right? So this is how you can use certain strategies to attempt vocabulary related questions. Now having said that, some of you must have just thought, okay ma'am, she has to give us some magic potion that can just work like magic. But to tell you honestly, there is nothing that can replace hard work. But once you've worked hard, how to attempt questions in a smart way is which is something that makes the difference, alright? So, there's always a longer way to approach questions, like I'm sure Rohit discusses, right? There's always a long way. So, nobody is testing how to arrive, nobody is testing what is the answer. In fact, how quickly you arrive at the answer is what is being tested, right? So, that is something that you can use. Method of elimination, especially for questions. I mean, this particular strategy applies to all question types, essentially all question types of, I would say English language and many others also. I'm sure questions related to arrangement and all, I'm sure you must be using a lot of elimination techniques, right? So similarly, likewise, you can use it in English as well, right? Great. So this is one question type, right? Let me just very quickly take you through jumbled sentences, right? How many of you are comfortable with parajumbles? Okay, I think if I had students who I could look at, most of the hands would go up, right? Okay, so parajumbles is again something that, I would say, let me use an idiom that causes a chill down the spine of most of the students, right? Parajumbles. Alright, let me go. Parajumbles or jumbled sentences as they're known. Jumbled sentences, right? Okay, so all of you know, right? Sending a chill down the spine. Again, I'm sure you're working on your idioms, on the usage of idioms, on building, on expanding your knowledge of idioms, right? Okay. Parajumbles, jumbled sentences, I need not explain what is this question type. All of you know it pretty well. It is a paragraph which has, of course, split into sentences. Any paragraph is made of sentences. And a parajumble is where the sentences happen jumbled up, which means the correct order has been jumbled up, right? So you have to choose which, and put it in order. So you have options like which of it is the first sentence, which of it is the second or the fifth, right? So what we generally discuss while discussing parajumbles is first, very quickly, the general and the most effective technique of attempting parajumbles is to correctly identifying the topic sentence, right? Correctly identify the topic sentence, right? So here also you can apply the method of elimination. Any thoughts how? Okay, let's say there is a method of elimination which we just discussed. How do you use the method of elimination in parajumbles, right? You know, generally in any jumbled up paragraph you have about 6 or 7 sentences, right? But then generally you're asked which is the 6th sentence, which is the 5th sentence. So you can rule out, suppose A, C, D, B, E, right? And it's been asked which is the 5th sentence, and 3 out of the 5 options, it does not reflect there. So there is a particular option, a choice, for example, E or F, which you can immediately eliminate, right? Which you can immediately eliminate, which you do not even have to consider. So you can keep putting the cross on the question paper that this sentence we're not going to consider. Okay, it's not included in the choices at all. Let's say in any of the options, if one is not included at all, so obviously it cannot, you don't have to look at that sentence each time, right? You can immediately rule that out. Of course, the most effective way is to identifying the topic sentence. It's very important to identify the topic sentence correctly. As you're all aware, the topic sentence is the sentence that usually does not have any transition words. Transition words, as most of our students would know, are actually the linking words which show a continuity. Okay, so if something is a topic sentence, obviously there will be no transition words, right? And in addition to that, there will be subjects which are introduced and no pronouns, right? If you have pronouns, that cannot be a topic sentence, because all of you know that a pronoun is actually something that you use to avoid repetition of nouns, and also to give a reference to a noun that has already been introduced. Am I right? Right. So, the moment you've identified the topic sentence correctly, okay, the moment you've identified the topic sentence correctly, you have to immediately take a look at the options. Now, let me again repeat myself, okay? Now, it is you and the questions which help you decide which is a smarter and a faster trick, okay? Which is a smarter and a faster technique is what you have to choose. If you're very easily able to identify the topic sentences, the topic sentence, then you really do not have to look at multiple options. Suppose topic sentence you've identified correctly from the options, there are 2 of those options which do not have the topic sentence as the first, right? So you can immediately eliminate that option. You don't have to look at that option at all, right? So that is how you try to work around it. Some of the people make mistakes in identifying keywords also, but the best trick is you have to identify, if you can draw a link from I would say, the subject and the pronoun or the linking words, what is referring to what. If you're able to identify, you will be able to eliminate 1 or 2 options as well. Okay, so I think Pragyam, I think Venkat, Chalpati, what you're saying is actually right. You have to rule out certain options, okay? The moment you rule out, then you have lesser options to choose from, okay? If I were in your place, okay, I wish I could be, but if I were in your place, I would have actually looked for that option which is not there in any of the options, and I would have immediately ruled that out from the available choices. And based on that, I would have formed my pattern, like if it is A, C, D, E, F or A, B, C, D, E, whatever, whichever is not reflecting in the options, I would actually eliminate that from the questions immediately. Okay, but having said that, strategies change from individual to individual, so you have to choose what works best for you. Just because Avipsa ma'am says so, you don't have to do it. If you think it works for you, you must do it. Alright? Otherwise, yes, there is no second option but to identify the topic sentence correctly. Look at the options. If there are repeated options of the first, look at the quick second sentence. If you're able to identify, get the combination right, and then maybe first three if it's right, the others are not there. So immediately you can choose the option rather than going around it. Now, I think Shubhendu asks questions like, how many minutes should we give to the comprehension and jumbled sentences? To tell you honestly, Shubhendu, it just depends how strong are you in the other sections. Okay? Generally, people approach. I don't want to answer questions like, how many minutes should you allot? Because how much time will Lalita take can differ from how much time will Vikram take or Padmana take, right? So all that varies. The only thing that we're discussing here is how to strategize your question approach and maximize your scores, right? So we discussed again method of elimination, how to use, again method of course keyword approach, transition words, identifying the topic sentence, all that. Since this is a free live session, I'm sure a lot of you who are not enrolled in our program are also a part of this session. So certainly, just a word for you all. If you really are interested to learn more, to actually get into the detail of how to approach, understand, of course, you can always visit our website, which is www.talentsprint.com/bank, right? And I'll mention that in the end as well. Or you can even dial us on our toll-free number, which is 1-800-2000-916. You can make a note of it. 1-800-916. Okay, that's our toll-free number. And otherwise, alternately, you can do www.talentsprint.com/bank. Right? You're all aware about the number of videos that you have. How we cover. Can you all see this now? I think you can see this, right? The one that I put here. Right. So, of course, our students already know it, but for all of you who are new, you can always visit our website. We have expert videos, we have live sessions. You can just choose a course based on your requirement, right? Great. Okay. That was about parallel jumbles. Let me quickly come back to your favorite question type. That is, spot the error or find, right? Favorite question for most of you? All right, I'm sure most of you agree with me. That is a favorite question type for most of us. And I'll tell you why. Because this is just one question type, but it covers 20 different types of errors that could be asked during the exam, right? Okay, Manoj says not my favorite. All right, Manoj, don't worry, okay? It can very soon become your favorite because all that you have to identify is the mistake. That's it, okay? And you must remember that there are 20 different types of errors that could be possibly asked, right? Now here, essentially, a knowledge, I would say in grammar certainly helps. But then there's another smarter technique also. I can share it with you, but again, I repeat myself, you have to know everything, but use what is the best for you once you're in the exam interface. Alright, now coming down to spot the error or finding errors. Now in this, let's say you have knowledge, most of our students know that essentially we have about 20 discrete components of errors, and the videos have already been done, and very soon, I'm also in the process of recording the Hindi version of our videos, existing videos, so I'm sure it will cater to the needs of most of you. Okay, so what I'm trying to explain here is, even when you've identified, okay, there are 4 or 5 parts of the sentence. There are 4 or 5 parts. Okay, there are 5 parts. 5th generally is no error, none of these, right? Okay, let's say the first part does not have an error. You have to use the strategy of asking questions, isn't it? You know that like in any sentence, a regular word order would be subject plus verb plus indirect object plus direct object followed by place, then time. That is the hierarchy of the appearance of words in a sentence, right? Once that structure is in place, then how do you approach those questions? All right. Suppose I say I have a meeting with my director in the boardroom at 4:30. Okay. Now, there could be a prepositional error, there could be a conjunction error, but then, of course, there is no shortcut to learning the basics, but at the same time, whether everything is in place, whether every question of yours is answered. Okay, I did what? Is there a verb? Okay, now verb is acting on what? Okay, so that is your object. Then you identify the indirect object, direct object. I think I'll repeat it. Padmana. Manas Panda. Manas Panda, I'm sorry, I've been reading the name as Padmana. Manas Panda wants me to repeat. The order is subject. You already know it. It's just that, just because I said it, it appeared new. Okay. I'll write it here for the benefit of everybody. Could I erase these people and I can use the board again? Okay, Vikram, that's pretty interesting. The problem in English is, even though we all know rules, we don't know where and when to apply. Right, just reminds me of one of the, scenes from the movie Three Idiots. I hope all of you have watched the movie. Right, that's quite a popular movie. Right, in that movie, the focus is on how to apply what you learn and not just what you learn. Right, I think most of you have watched the movie Three Idiots, correct? So the focus there, what is it that is actually the focus of that movie? That do not just focus on learning, but also apply what you learn, correct? So it's not about just learning what is the conjunction, but every time you read a sentence, how to track your learning, you have to practice it over and over again so that you build your awareness, you increase your knowledge about the usage of conjunctions, alright? So again, as I said, the objective of this session is not to give you a shortcut to hard work, because there is no shortcut to hard work. You have to work hard. But after having worked hard, what is it that can actually help you work smart in an exam interface is what we're discussing. Right? So that's the point that I was trying to bring in here. Okay. Okay, I think you all know it. Don't worry, Vikram. Even if you don't know Hindi, you don't have to worry, because everything is already there in English, right? It's only for the benefit of people who are not so comfortable in understanding English. For the benefit of those, I certainly am in the process of recording the videos in Hindi, and I'm sure you're also aware that Rohit has already recorded his videos in Hindi. So, so that is for the benefit of people who still face a lot of difficulty in understanding English in English. Alright, it's not that the questions of English can never be asked in Hindi, but then understanding the concept can always be done. Alright, okay, we were just talking about this order that you just asked, right? It is subject plus verb, okay, plus Alright. Now, not every sentence will have everything, but subject plus verb plus object has to be there. Okay, otherwise that sentence is not a sentence, it is a phrase. Right? So this is something that you can remember. Now, talking about the book for spotting the error, there is no book as such for spotting the error, because spot the error is about spotting that part of the sentence which has an error. Okay, as I said, the best way is to join our course. Okay, that is just on a lighter note. But yes, as I said, we have a separate section which deals with finding errors, where we discuss all the 20 discrete components. There are discrete videos which explain how to identify noun-based errors, or I would say noun-number-based errors, pronoun-based errors, reflexive noun-based errors. So it's very important to be aware of what kind of errors that could be asked. So once you build that awareness of the kind of errors that could be asked, you know how to answer, right? So that is the point that I was trying to make here. So this is in any finding errors type of question. Of course, there are different types of errors. You should know what are the different types of prepositions. You know, if you have time, you know, if you have a reference, time reference, you have to have a preposition which is related to time. You cannot have a preposition which is related to a place, right? So time related conjunction, again when, right? So not which. So those are the few things that you have to remember, and that is what we have as a part of our learning program, right? Okay, now again, how to answer. Now this particular strategy will also help you answer those questions where you have a sentence, and and the words are jumbled up. Okay, that's also a question type where you have to rearrange the sentence and put it in the right order. So, like a parajumble is a paragraph which is jumbled up. In this, the word order is changed. Now, whenever it's about sentence improvement, or try to put it in the right order, right? Sentence ordering. So, what happens in these type of questions? If you're able to identify the topic word, the main subject, and you know this particular sequence, you will be able to put the words in a proper sequence, which means your sentence will be in place, right? So that's about finding errors essentially in a nutshell. I can't say that in an hour's free live session I can touch upon every topic in detail. It's just about opening a small window for you people, for you to at least have a brief idea about how to approach the questions, right? So far, all good? All right. Okay, now coming down to reading and comprehension, right? Reading and comprehension. So what is it that we learned until now? First is, of course, no shortcut to hard work. Second is, use the method of elimination. If you're able to eliminate a few responses, nothing like it. Okay. Third is, how to relate certain keywords. Now, coming down to reading and comprehension. Reading and comprehension, you all know that. Okay. Do you all know what is the trick to attempt a reading and how to read a passage fast? How to read a passage fast. Okay, first and foremost, Venkat and everybody else, you have to throw that thing out of your brain that it is difficult for me. Okay, unless you train your brain to think that I will be able to do. Okay, there is no possibility that you can do. So first and foremost, don't just say that I can't do. Always say, I'll try, let me see. Alright, that's one thing. Okay, now, alright, skimming, scamming, first read the questions, Pragyam, okay, skim, scan. Alright, I think some answers are coming up based on the sessions that I've done before, okay, on reading and comprehension. But then, okay, all is fine. But then there's a smart trick to approach certain questions. Right? Please understand, it's usually the first paragraph and the last paragraph, or the first few lines or the last few lines together. They give you the gist of the paragraph. Okay? Essentially, your topic paragraph and your concluding paragraph gives you an idea about what the paragraph is all about. Okay? Go through the questions. Quick questions. Some questions could be direct pick from the passages. Okay? From the passage. Some questions, right? Which are essentially factual questions based on facts, data that you can directly pick from the passage. But in addition to that, there are questions where you may be asked about the author's opinion, or which of these is not right, which of this is right, etc. Right? So there are certain keywords. So the more you practice, of course, the faster you get. But then how to answer questions like, okay, does the author mean this, or what does the author wish to convey? Very convenient. Most of you will say, ma'am, we will skip the question, right? Conveniently, we will skip the question. All right. Everybody has that option, right? So, suppose reading comprehension is the only question and you don't have a choice but to do the question. How would your approach be? Let's understand that, all right? So, you can practice. When you're practicing, you can always practice with the right approach. Of course, once you're in the exam, then, of course, words from Rohit or me, they would certainly come handy, but then you are the best person to decide whether I should do this or whether I should not. Okay, not every question, what does the author mean to say, or what is the main point, or is a difficult question. Sometimes it's very easy. Just read the topic paragraph and the concluding paragraph and you'll get an idea of what the author wishes to convey. Because that essentially is the gist of the passage. Okay, the concluding paragraph usually is a summary of the entire paragraph, and it gives you an idea of what is the central theme, the theme detection. How do you detect the theme of the passage? Alright, so this is one of the smart techniques that you can adopt. Alright, so the body, any passage can actually be divided into a three-part structure. Any passage has a three-part structure. You have an introduction, conclusion, and in the center lies the body, right? So body has the details about specific questions, but things related to what is it conveyed, etc. Overall, you can get an idea from the topic paragraph and the concluding paragraph, right? So this is something that you can follow. Just a quick tip is what I can share in this short span of time. Of course, I repeat myself, there is no shortcut to practicing. The more you practice, the more familiar you will be with words and the lesser time you will take to comprehend what you're reading. Okay? How to remember synonyms and antonyms. Again, Pallavi, human brain has a limited capacity. Okay? So, in addition to learning synonyms, you can also learn the certain techniques. Now, those techniques, as I just mentioned, we have discussed a couple of techniques on our site as well as to how knowledge of prefixes, suffixes certainly comes handy to rule out certain options, to get an idea about certain words, right? For example, when you say, genial, okay, congenial, geniality, it's related to something related to friendliness, being nice, etc. So, if you have knowledge of root words or prefixes, congenial, like working together, gene, which talks about, friendliness, something that's vital, important, friendliness, which is full of life. So that way you can relate and answer. Of course, nothing like Mohan, what you just said, Manoj, going through the options. Alright? So, first and foremost, the first thing is attempt those questions which either you can attempt and it does not require you to revisit those questions. Okay? You have independently asked vocabulary, you either know it or you don't know it. It's not that you go back to the question the third time you will be able to remember. If you can't get it in the first time, you don't get it. So always try to get those questions which will not take up a lot of your time and which you can immediately either mark or eliminate. Alright, so how and what to read English newspaper? Okay, you can pick up editorials on a regular basis, because that will not just keep you updated about, that will not just help you increase your speed, but also help you, build your general awareness. And the more you read regularly, the more you would know about things, right? Which means clearing the general awareness section or the current affairs section will also be quite easy for you, right? I'm sure you all are aware that the notification for the IBPS is already out, exams starting from October, right? So most of you would have already started your preparation. So 2016, some of you would have already planned to really hit big in the year 2016. And some of you who are still thinking, as I said, one of the options is, of course, in addition to how have you planned for yourself to prepare to get through your dream job, you can always visit our website, go through it and choose a course of your choice, or of course we have a toll-free number which is 1-800-2000-916, right? So that could also be the answer to all your questions, right? You may just get the right training, the right material, the right guidance. Okay, like the only difference, between a person who's just preparing himself or herself and has everything around him or her, and between our students, who are our registered students, is that for our registered students, along with them, the faculty also works. We work with them, right? We think what could be done best for our students. We think what should be done first, what should be done later. We think that, okay, current affairs will certainly help them. So we, based on the notification requirement of the exam, we conduct sessions. So that's the only difference between preparing all by yourself and preparing under guidance, enrolling yourselves with us and working together. But then there is no shortcut to hard work, right? So I think, alright, so we've discussed, for reading and comprehension also we discussed. I think Shubhendu really wants to know how to read fast. Okay, Shubhendu, just to answer that question, first and foremost, reading fast is about, when you read word for word, you certainly cannot read fast, right? So I just gave you an idea how to first read the topic paragraph and then the concluding paragraph. And based on that, you can get an idea. You can get an idea about the theme of the passage, right? So once you get the theme, the words which are related to the theme certainly start striking you. And then as you read, it may not appear Greek and Latin. When I say Greek and Latin means may not appear strange to you, right? So this is one thing that I'd like to tell you here. Okay, maybe a quick tip that I can give you on one of the question types that so we've covered reading comprehension, we've covered finding errors, right? How to spot the errors. Question can be asked in different forms. We've covered vocabulary related questions. Yeah, there's just one particular pattern for vocabulary related questions where you have, there's one very interesting question type where you have a group of words. You have a group of words and you have to select a pair which is either closest in meaning or they're opposite in meanings, which means you have to identify a pair which are either synonyms or antonyms. Now, in this particular question type, in this particular pattern of the vocabulary related question, the method of elimination works like magic. Okay, so you have to, you can rule out certain options. Now, of course, knowledge of word meaning certainly comes handy here. So keep building your knowledge on words. Build your word power. Of course, sentence improvement is also a question type. How to solve phrase and wrong spelt questions. Again, wrongly spelt questions. You should be, again, knowledge of, there are sometimes certain phrases which are used, certain idioms which are used, right? Certain idioms, I think one of the questions I was asked in the SO exam, right? It was like, my friend's father's death came as a bolt to the blue. Okay, bolt to the blue. Now this is an idiom. Actually, come as a bolt from the blue, or the resignation of my colleague came as a bolt of the blue. Now, what is the error here? If you are aware of the idioms, bolt from the blue, okay, which means something that comes without any notice, suddenly, something that you're not prepared for. So that particular expression is actually, which is bolt from the blue, okay, rather than bolt off the blue. So if you have this knowledge of idioms, you certainly can, get these questions right? And of course, in addition to this, sentence improvement and all can also test your knowledge on the correct usage of phrases like, sometimes you say despite of. We don't say despite of. We either say in spite of or despite, right? Despite the hard work, he still could not succeed. Or in spite of all the hard work, he still could not make it through the interview, right? So there are a couple of times that you would find a boldened expression which will say despite of, but there your knowledge that despite and in spite of are, they mean the same is what comes handy at that point. Okay, so these are essentially, the quick tips that I can say. But again, I'd repeat myself: keep working hard, keep practicing. Okay. I think that's okay. What about wrongly spelt words? Again, Vaishnavi. Wrongly spelt words, some spellings are very obvious. Okay, so obviously you can make out. Now, wrongly spelt words sometimes contextually also, if there is a context that can help you, you know that okay, which word fits in here, and you also can relate to the correctness of the spelling. So that is one approach of answering questions related to misspelled words. All right. Okay, something related to close passage. Again, the reason why I did not take close passage separately was because tips for close passage, reading comprehension essentially are the same. Okay, here you have the keyword approach. Okay, so whenever there's a word missing, there's either a word prior or later, okay, which gives you a hint to the actual word. Okay, so this is the keyword approach, which helps you understand which is the right fit. Okay, and in addition to that, I think another approach that you can use for close test again is elimination. Okay, elimination, you can eliminate certain responses after having identified the keywords, because the keywords, let's say, are giving a negative meaning, but certain options in the close test are conveying something positive. So very quickly you can eliminate those words. Okay, so this is how you can approach the close passages. I think one last that I can take up is how to answer fill in the blanks. All right. Okay, now fill in the blanks. Generally, you'll have a sentence where you'll have two blanks, and available options. You'll have a pair of words and you have to choose which one fits. Or on the other hand, there's another type also which could be asked, where you have to choose one word which fits perfectly in 2 sentences, right? So there are 2 sentences, each of the sentence with a blank, and you have to choose one word which fits perfectly into both the sentences. So again, keyword approach, same, okay. Context clues, how do you derive context clues? With respect to the context, how do you draw a clue, get that hint and choose a word? Because you know, when you have to choose a word and there are two sentences with a blank and you have to choose one word which applies to both, there again method of elimination helps, because for certain options, you know, what appears correct for the first may not fit right in the second. So again, context driven clues certainly come handy, right? Venkat, I think, yeah, you asking this question whether there's negative marking for English section in LICAO. I'm not too sure, but as I say, any of these bank exams always have negative marking. So I don't think there's even one exam which has no negative marking for a wrong answer, right? So I think what is the negative marking is what you can check. I'm not too sure. It doesn't really strike me immediately, but I can say that there is a negative marking, and most likely it should be 0.25 for a wrong, minus 0.25 for a wrong attempt. Right? I think Kati Raisin has already answered. There is negative mark for each section. Right. Okay. And again, coming down to questions related to cutoff and all, I repeat and I stand by it. Cutoff and all is not something that is in your hand. It is something that's decided after the exam is set, after the exam has been taken up by the students. Only then cutoff and different variations of cutoff are decided. So don't bother yourself with something that you have no control on. Okay. You Sahu. Okay, I think no question as such. All right. So hopefully these tips should help you, you know, score well. I think again, I think Venkatesh is saying it's not there in LICAO. I'm not too sure about LICAO. You know, the maybe another live session when we meet up, I can always get back. I'm sure all this information is available on the site, but good that you asked. I'm not too sure about whether there is a negative marking. I mean, Venkatesh is saying that just have to clear that section. Okay. All right. If that's so, then fair enough. All right. But you can always check about more about it. Okay. We have, I'm sure you are aware, right? General awareness is a very important thing that is asked in the exam. So we have one of our experts, okay, who's actually preparing for civil services and is quite an expert in general awareness and current affairs. And we have sessions with him as well. Our students would know he's Dinesh, and he takes sessions on current affairs and you know, general awareness. So that certainly is very, very helpful. So again, as I said, you can opt for a course you like and take the benefit of what we have to offer, right? So I think, right, I think on that note, we can bring the session to an end. I hope you all enjoyed watching and it was helpful, fruitful in some way or the other, right? But as I said, keep practicing, keep learning, because there is no shortcut to hard work, right? Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I'll see you all in the next, and do look forward to more free live sessions that we have every Wednesday from 6 to 7. So you can check our Facebook notifications and YouTube for the updates or for the sessions that we have for you all, right? Thank you so much, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.